Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. Bismillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulihi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsani ila yawmiddin wa ba'd. Okay, this is going to be the updated recording of the class from yesterday. The topic that we're covering is Aqidah, and the book that we're using is Aqidah al-Maysara, the Creed Made Easy, inshallah ta'ala. So we're going to get right to it. Again, I apologize for the inconvenience for the last recording not having any sound. And inshallah, we should do good on this one. Let's see how it goes. Okay, bismillah. Okay, so we're going to get right to it. As you can see, this is the Creed Made Easy. This is a book that we cover, a very simple book on the basics of Creed. All right. It's a class on Islamic beliefs and what is necessary for a Muslim to know as far as beliefs. And I am the presenter of the class, inshallah. This class will be every Wednesday from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. And again, I'm re-recording this class because the sound on the last one went out. So I'd like to apologize for those. There are a couple people hit me up. So it made me feel good because somebody is really watching it. I mean, they didn't make the live, but no problems, no worries. Okay. All right, so we'll continue on. Okay, the book is called Al-Aqidah al-Maysara, the Creed Made Easy, and the contents dealing with the fundamental aspects of the Islamic creed which are necessary for a Muslim to know. Wajib, to know, to understand, and believe. So everything that we cover in this book with respect to Aqidah that a Muslim must know for himself or herself, inshallah. Okay, the author of the book is Sheikh Sayyid Mahmoud Abul Huda Badruddin al-Husseini. The Sheikh was born in 1960 in Minbij, Aleppo province in Syria, so he's still alive in his late 50s. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserve him. He served as Imam and Khatib of the Adaliyah Mosque and Umayyad Mosque of Aleppo for over 25 years. He taught at the famous Al-Fath Al-Islami Institute in Damascus in Syria, and he's the former director of religious endowments in Aleppo. So I encourage all of you to look at the rich Islamic history of Syria, and we make dua for the people of Syria being pressed by their own government and occupying forces, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to remove any oppression from them and save them. Ameen. Okay. Sheikh Mahmoud is also a physician, a former supervisor of medicine and pharmacy at the University of Aleppo. So this just shows how our ulama, past and present, you know, they didn't just study the Islamic sciences, they also studied secular sciences. And you find many of them making great advancements in medicine and poetry and the like, you know. So and it's something that should encourage us. And we don't just practice the deen and forget about other things, you know. Whatever our occupation is, of course, is an occupation that's a halal means, we should be the very best at it, inshallah. All right, so this book is going to be talking about religion or talking about deen. And so when we give a definition of deen, it comes from the Arabic word dana or dana, which means to be indebted or to take up a loan or to have an obligation. I'm trying to pull up because I was looking, try to pull it up, but let me continue. All right, so the meaning of that's the linguistic meaning of deen or that comes from that word. So the technical meaning is the code of divine laws which Allah has chosen for his servants, governing the rights of ibadah, or worship due to him. I got it where it says Bad right there. That's supposed to say ibadah. Worship due to him, and a code of conduct in dealing with each other. It is the heavenly way which guides every person of a sound mind to the path of goodness, and whoever chooses it and is content with it gains happiness in this life and in the hereafter. Now, let me just bring this up because that's one remarkable definition of religion. If you look up religion in the dictionary, it don't give you much, all right? So it says, the first thing they say is a set of beliefs concerning the cause, nature, and purpose of the universe, especially when considered as a creation of a superhuman agency or agencies, usually involving devotional and ritual observances, and often containing a moral code governing the conduct of human affairs. So this connects you, the meaning of religion in English, it connects you with some principles, but the meaning of deen connects you with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You see the difference? So this is why it's also good to, you know, undertake study of the Arabic language to get those rich meanings of the words and the origins of words, inshallah. So that's what deen is right here, the code of divine laws, and when the person embraces those laws and follows those laws, he gains happiness in this life and in the hereafter. All right. And so the pillars of the religion, the pillars of the deen are three, as we know: Islam, Iman, and Ihsan. All right. So we continue with the subject of deen and religion. All right. So the first part of those the first pillar of those three pillars is Islam, which means the submission to the rulings of Allah, which have been revealed to his messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Islam is going to be with respect to the ahkam, the rulings. All right. And remember, this is the book that this is the beliefs that every Muslim must know. All right. So 5 pillars. I'm assuming that no one's here is a brand new Muslim who's going to be watching this, but everyone should know the 5 pillars: the Shahada, Salat, Zakat, Siyam, and Hajj. And it is incumbent upon us to know the ins and outs, all of the rulings, the ahkam that are related to each of those 5 pillars in detail, that every person of sound mind must know them. Okay. So, and then the second pillar of religion is Iman. And Iman means faith normally, but it also has a meaning of acceptance from the heart of Allah as Lord, Islam as the religion, and the Quran as the criterion, and Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, our Master Muhammad, as a prophet and a messenger. So this is what constitutes what having Iman is. Everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought, everything he sent his messenger with, and everything that we find in the Quran, and everything that's, that has reliable reports from the time of the Prophet Islam, his companions, and those 2 generations that followed them. These are things that really helps us to define and refine Iman, inshallah. Okay, and Iman is acceptance in the heart, verbal affirmation, and outward adherence to the rulings of Allah. And it has 6 pillars: belief in Allah, his angels, his books, his messengers, the day of judgment and destiny, the qadr, the good and the evil of it. And, there are scholarly arguments about what constitutes Iman. Is it enough to have it in your heart? Is it enough to have it in your heart and just a verbal affirmation and maybe not having any resemblance of it on your outer limbs? Or, is it on your outer limbs or have you confirmed in your heart? That's a whole nother subject because that would be kufr or nifaq. So all of those things that beyond the scope of this presentation, but we'll discuss them maybe in the future course, inshallah. All right, so 6 pillars that we believe in, and that makes up Iman. Okay, and then the third pillar of the deen is Ihsan, and that is perfection of faith. So, and of course, we have here the meaning of it is to worship Allah as you see him, and although you do not see him, he sees you. So we should know by now that this foundation of the 3 pillars of his deen, of religion, is taken from the hadith of Jibril alayhi salam. And all of us should be familiar with the hadith of Jibril. It is the first or second hadith in the collection of Sahih Muslim. I can't remember, forgive me for that. But everyone knows the hadith when the angel Jibril came to the Prophet ﷺ in the form of a man, and he asked him what was Islam, what was Iman, and what was Ihsan. And after he left, the Prophet ﷺ had asked Umar and them, do you know who that was? And they said, Allah and his messenger know best. And they said, that was the angel Jibril. He came to teach you religion. And I just listened to a talk this morning. It was very beautiful. Now it just ties in with this. And it was saying that some of the explanations of this hadith is that after the angel Jibril had left and they had waited around for some time, some of the reports says that it was a couple days that passed. It was a couple days that passed. And then the Prophet ﷺ came back and visited them, and was like, do you know who that man was? So it just shows you the great commitment of the Sahaba, radiallahu anhum ajma'in. And that's not really for this discussion, but just something to look into. All right, so the hadith of Jibril, all of us should be familiar with. And now I got something else. This is a trivia question. What is another name of the hadith of Jibril? So those who will be watching this, I will need you to either email me, or you could hopefully I have some participants next week, and tell me what the Hadith of Jibril is known by another name, inshallah. So that's your first homework assignment. And of course, knowing these three pillars of Islam. All right. Okay. Move on. So, as far as deen, with respect to the deen, we have individual and communal obligations that every Muslim must know. And the first one is fard ayn. Fard ayn. And that fard ayn is defined as an individual obligation, and that is what is demanded from every accountable person. And when we say every accountable person, we mean everyone who is mukallaf. And mukallaf is the legally responsible person, and they must meet these conditions on the bottom. That first, they must have puberty, and puberty for a male is that he either has a wet dream, he has pubic hair, or he reaches the age of 15. Whichever one of those comes first, then he is considered mukallaf. It should be, and for a female, it's just one that when she reaches her menses. And that's something very remarkable, you know, how women are way more advanced than us, you know, and because, you know, their girls are reported to reach their cycles as early as 6 or 7 years old. And so imagine at that time, they already assumed responsibility. They already technically grown women, or they're legally responsible for knowing this information of the deen. Now that doesn't mean, you know, someone says puberty that the woman is mature, you know, because, you know, don't nobody take nothing wrong from this. We're just talking about technically what makes a person legally responsible, all right? And at the same time, you know, a man might be 15, he becomes a man legally responsible, but he's not ready for marriage. And in this generation, definitely not, you know. But may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability to raise righteous sons and daughters. I mean, so puberty, sound mind, that a person is not crazy, a person's faculties are all in order. And this one is very important, that the proper message of Islam has reached them. The proper message of Islam has reached them, because a person may not be held accountable if they were exposed to Islam, and it was an Islam that was from some of the deviant groups and some of the different deviant ideologies that exist amongst those Muslim factions. You know, so for instance, if a person followed a certain doctrine that made them, you know, have disdain for the majority of Muslims, saying they were committing shirk and most of them were misguided except a few, then they may not have known what true Islam is, you know. And so we have to make excuses for them, and we have to teach them, you know. So, and they, you know, so when you see the ignorance sometimes from people, you have to remember that maybe the proper message of Islam has not reached them, because if it did, then they wouldn't really be talking as such. So we make dua for the Muslims, and we want all of them to be rightly guided. And so fard ayn is the individual obligation that every single individual person who is mukallaf is responsible for the knowledge of the deen and all of the intricacies of those three pillars. All right, so fard kifaya is a communal obligation, what is demanded from a community of accountable individuals, such that as long as one person or some people from that community fulfills the obligation, the rest are exempt from it. And in addition to that, that if a community of accountable individuals, or at least one person, if they don't fulfill it, then everybody shares in the sin of not fulfilling that obligation. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us people who always fulfill the obligations as best as we're able. I mean, so these two terms you should know. Fard ayn is an individual obligation for each and every Muslim who is mukallaf, and mukallaf, they will be legally responsible of puberty, sound mind, and the proper message of Islam has reached them. All right. And fard kifaya, you know, you all know that. Okay. Next, so continuing with fard ayn, that there are 5 individual obligations with respect to fard ayn. So not only is it an individual obligation, there are 5 other things that a person should know that is absolutely necessary. That they have to know Allah, and they have to have faith in them. You have to know Allah. You have to know what is permissible for Allah, what is possible for Allah, what is impossible for Allah, who's subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know. And you know what Allah is and what He isn't, who He is and who He isn't, and what, you know, what constitutes belief in him, and having that properly. That's an obligation that a person must know for themselves. It ain't like other religions. And this is one of the beautiful things of Islam. For some of us who come from Christian backgrounds or other ones, have you ever had a detailed analysis of your religion where knowledge is divided up like this? I remember going to church and it was never like this, this detailed information. Like I don't remember there was knowledge that I had to know. All I had to do was believe that Jesus Christ was Lord and Savior, wa yada billah, and that was it. Just come to church and pay my dues. But there was never no details, and this is one of the remarkable things about Islam, and this is why guidance is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is why it shouldn't be easy for a Muslim to be misguided, because everything in your deen is proper order. So you got foreign ayn that you must know before you move on to something else, or you take up another science. You should know obligatory matters in your religion that you have to know, and there's no excuse for not knowing them. So the first one, to know Allah and to have faith in him. To know the rulings of the religious rites of the ibadat, everything connected to salat, siyam, hajj, and the intricacies of zakat, then you have to know them and practice them. And if you don't know them, you have to ask. And you just can't go off of secondhand information. You have to know what is the ruling, what makes up tahara, what breaks tahara, all of that stuff, Also to know the rulings and the transactions, mu'amalat, of interaction with people, business transactions or personal transactions that are relevant to one's life, and to conduct oneself according to them. The fourth obligation is to know what is lawful and unlawful as established by the Islamic law, the Sharia, so that one may observe the limits. And the fifth one is an obligation to purify one's soul, tazkiyatun nafs. It is an obligation on the individual that they take care of their souls, make sure they know lawful, unlawful, and the rest. And this fifth one is very important. And as a matter of fact, we're going to have another class on Friday night. We're revisiting our Friday Night Lights. So we're going to have spiritual discourses, and we want to be speaking about this matter of tazkiyatun nafs. And, tazkiyatun nafs has a number of names: purification of the soul, zuhud, abstinence from the world, tasawwuf, Sufism, they call it Sufism, but all of it with tazkiyatun nafs revolves around removing blameworthy traits from yourself and replacing them with praiseworthy traits. So that class will be on Fridays, inshallah, and I hope you all can attend. All right, so these are the 5 obligations of Fard Ayn. Okay, so now it brings us to the legal rulings in Islamic law, al-hukm al-shari. So every legal ruling in Islam related to worship and mu'amalat, they fall under these 5 categories. And so these things that we should know. The first one is wajib, or sometimes you will see it as fard, something that is legally obligatory. And what that means is what Allah has definitely demanded, and the servant is rewarded for doing them and punished for neglecting them. So an example is like, the salat, that you have to make salat. Salat is not something that you can choose to make, or you feel like if you don't want to make it at a certain time. No, you have this a definite command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to pray, and there's rewards for praying. The hadith of Sahih Muslim, when the Prophet ﷺ went through the levels of Jannah, and at first the prescribed prayer was 50 a day, and when he met Prophet Musa alayhi salam, he said, your people won't be able to hold that up, so go back and ask your Lord to reduce it. So it came down to 5, but the reward of the 5 prayers a day is equivalent to 50. So by automatically observing your 5 basic prayers, you're getting a reward, and punished for neglecting them, and actually one of the strongest proofs of neglecting salat is, that it constitutes kufr, and some of the ulama argue that it doesn't matter if you just neglected out of laziness or not. Al-ahdu ladhi baynana wa baynakum as-salat. Between the contract between us, baynana wa baynahum as-salat. The contract between us and them is salat, meaning the disbelievers. So that's the difference. فَمَنْ تَرَكَهَا فَقَدْ كَفَرَ. And whoever leaves it, they have become a disbeliever. And this is one of the strongest proofs from the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Whoever leaves the salah, so whoever leaves it means like whoever abandons it, whoever stops making it. And it doesn't explain whether it's out of laziness or neglect or fear or anything. So, so we should make sure we at least try to perfect our salah. So the first term is the legal ruling is wajib. The second one is mandub or mustahab, something that is legally recommended. So what Allah has demanded in a manner other than definite, and the servant is rewarded for doing them, but not punished for refraining from them. So an example of that is, eating halal food, eating halal food, you're rewarded for doing it, but not punishing if you refrain from eating halal meat, So, that's a big argument today. We're not gonna get into that. The next one is muharram or haram, something that is legally prohibited, and that is something that Allah has definitely forbidden, and there's no two ways about it. And the servant is rewarded for refraining from those things and punished if he engages in them. All right. The next one is makruh, something that is legally disliked, what Allah has forbidden in a manner other than definitive, and the servant is rewarded for refraining from them and not punished for doing them. All right. So, for instance, something that is makruh, it's like maybe like fidgeting in a salah or looking around, So that's just an example. And the next one is mubah, something that is legally permissible, something that Allah permits as well as refraining from, and not one doesn't have preference over the other. So, if you do it, it's good, but there's no reward connected to it. And if you don't do it, it doesn't really make a difference. But it's something that is allowed, that no specific reward is connected to it. So we need to know these terms: wajib, mandub or mustahab, muharram or haram, makruh, and mubah. Okay, so that ends the slideshow, inshallah. So that ends the class. Hopefully, I might have kind of rushed through this a little bit. I hope I didn't go too fast for anybody. But if there are any questions, of course, you can email me, or you can. If you have my number, you can contact me, inshallah. But take the time to review the class. Review the slides. Know the 3 pillars of Islam. Know what mukallaf is. What is fard ayn, what is fard kifayah. The 5 legal obligations upon the person who is mukallaf with respect to fard ayn, and know those 5 legal rulers, hukm ashari, inshallah. So with that, we will conclude. Hopefully this one goes over, with the sound, and if not, inshallah, I should be able to double check it. Okay, thank you for your time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.